Healthy liver cells is replaced with inflammatory cells and fibrous tissues. This will lead to cell death of the liver cells. The scarring and fibrosis and cell death accompanied in cirrhosis will cause the liver to shrink. Before we delve into the complications associated with liver cirrhosis, we need to familiarize ourselves with some organs that can be affected by liver cirrhosis. So here is a human body, and here is a liver suffering cirrhosis. Notice the nodules. Below the liver we have the gallbladder. The liver and gallbladder will release bile from the common bile duct into the small intestines here. The common bile duct will actually join with the duct coming from the pancreas as well. The bile is used to emulsify fat for absorption as well as many other things. And we won't focus on the pancreas in this video. Other organs that can be affected in cirrhosis include the esophagus, that is part of the digestive tract and connects the mouth with the acidic stomach here. The stomach then connects to the small intestines. The small intestines will then connect to the large intestines, the ascending colon of the large intestines, that is. And then the ascending colon will join with the transverse and then the descending colon, where feces will then be expelled from the rectum here. So what is important to know with all these digestive organs is that they are supplied with fresh oxygenated blood from the heart. This red artery here coming from the heart. The spleen is also an organ that is supplied by this fresh oxygenated blood and is also affected or damaged in liver cirrhosis. So when all these organs have received this fresh blood from this red artery, then blood will then leave through the veins and will leave from these digestive organs via the vein with deoxygenated blood and nutrients. The veins leaving most of these digestive organs will not travel directly to the heart, but will travel to the liver first. So all the blood leaving these digestive organs will connect and travel into the liver through what's called the portal vein. The liver not only receives this blood supply from all these digestive organs, the intestine, stomach, and spleen, but also receives fresh oxygenated blood from the heart through the hepatic artery. So the liver receives blood from two sources: hepatic artery, fresh oxygenated blood, and the portal vein, which is blood supply coming from the digestive organs. The liver will then process this, and the blood will then travel out of the liver through the hepatic vein and connect to the inferior vena cava, where it will return to the heart. Now, if that did not make any sense to you, I have a video on liver blood supply, which is very useful. Other organs that can be affected by cirrhosis, which I will talk about in this video, include the lungs and the brain and the kidneys, which I have not drawn yet. Liver cirrhosis in general can cause two main problems, which can then cause other problems, but they are all associated together essentially. These two problems liver cirrhosis can cause is liver damage itself and also portal hypertension. Let us focus on portal hypertension first, as this can have a significant impact on the human body. Remember, the portal vein is the blood supply that travels through the liver from the veins coming out of other digestive organs. So portal hypertension is hypertension of this portal vein. Portal hypertension is where the fibrosis and scarring of the liver will lead to the blocking of blood flow through the liver. And so we will have a portal vein bypass. The pressure in the portal vein will increase because it cannot get through the liver and will result in blood flow going backwards essentially. I hope that makes sense. Let us zoom into the liver area and portal vein to understand more about the complications associated with portal hypertension due to liver cirrhosis. Let us review quickly the organs that can be affected with portal hypertension first. So here is the liver, the gallbladder, the esophagus connecting to the stomach, stomach to the small intestines to the large intestines. I'm only drawing the ascending and descending colon of the large intestines here. And then the rectum, and finally the spleen. All the veins returning deoxygenated blood and nutrients from these organs will flow through the liver first before joining into the inferior vena cava. And so here, the gastric vein will join the portal vein, the splenic vein will join the portal vein, the intestine veins, which are made up of predominantly the inferior mesenteric vein, will return blood from the descending large intestines, and the superior mesenteric vein will return blood to the portal vein from connected to the portal vein from the ascending, transverse, and small intestines. So all these veins will join to the portal vein, which will not only provide the liver with deoxygenated blood, but will provide the liver with nutrients for processing. Because the veins leaving the intestines, for example, are absorbing nutrients after we eat. The blood entering the liver will then leave the liver through the hepatic vein and connect with the inferior vena cava, which will then return blood to the heart. When we have liver cirrhosis, it can cause blockage of blood flow through the liver due to fibrosis and liver scarring. The blockage can really occur anywhere along the portal vein entering the liver. This will cause portal vein bypass. The blood cannot go through because the pressure in the portal vein is increasing, causing blood to flow backwards towards areas such as the stomach and esophagus. When the blood flows backwards towards the esophagus, it can cause esophageal varices. Esophageal varices is caused by portal hypertension, when we have blocking of blood flow through the liver, through the portal vein. And this will result in increased pressure in the portal vein. The increased pressure will cause blood to bypass and go backwards back towards the stomach and esophagus. So back towards the esophagus and gastric vein, which will result in increase in pressure there. The increase in pressure will cause varices, esophageal varices, and we can have bleeding from these varices, which can be very serious. The splenic vein also normally carries blood to the liver via the portal vein, and so portal hypertension can cause blood flow back to the spleen, causing enlargement of the spleen, also known as splenomegaly. So splenic vein joins to the portal vein. Increase in pressure in the portal vein, as in portal hypertension, will cause blood flow bypass back to the spleen. Spleen normally removes older red blood cells and white blood cells and platelets. So a blocked blood flow from the spleen to the liver will cause accumulation of cells in the spleen. And this will cause the enlargement of the spleen, also known as splenomegaly. What would this mean for the body? Well, if all these red blood cells, white blood cells, and platelets are accumulating in the liver and can't get out, if we would check the blood of this person suffering from liver cirrhosis, he would have thrombocytopenia, low platelet count, which means that there would be insufficient clotting for the body. And then he will have anemia, which would mean that there's poor oxygen supply. And he would have leukopenia, meaning that he would have low white blood cell count in the blood, and this would mean that he'd probably be more prone to infection. And all these, there are low amounts of these cells because they're all accumulating in the liver because the blood can't really flow out properly, remember. Another problem due to the portal hypertension can coming where the veins coming from the rectum can't flow back out. This would lead to hemorrhoids, a condition known as hemorrhoids. So that's another condition for liver cirrhosis. Now, portal hypertension due to cirrhosis can also cause other serious complications in chronic cases, such as hepatic encephalopathy. Normally, ammonia from protein and amino acids metabolism is eliminated in bile from the liver. However, due to the bypass, due to portal hypertension, detoxification of ammonia cannot occur, and so excess ammonia can then reach the brain, causing hepatic encephalopathy, causing loss of concentration, loss of memory, confusion, decreased levels of consciousness, coma, and even death. Another complication which is related to liver damage as well as portal hypertension is hepatic pulmonary syndrome. Hepatic pulmonary syndrome is seen in about 1/3 of cases of cirrhosis. To understand what happens in this syndrome, we have to just recap about our circulatory system. So remember, we have here the lungs and the heart. The blood from the inferior vena cava and superior vena cava enters the heart, enters the right atrium, and then exits out to be reoxygenated in the lungs. The reoxygenated blood will then come back to the heart through the left atrium and then be pumped out of the heart to the rest of the body. Now, the pathophysiology of hepatic pulmonary syndrome is not fully understood, but there are a few ideas. In advanced cirrhosis, the liver will start secreting hormones such as endothelin-1 and also cause common bile duct ligation. Endothelin-1 is a vasoconstrictor. It causes smooth muscles to contract, for example. However, in the absence of smooth muscles, such as in the lung capillaries, it will cause vasodilation by releasing nitric oxide, NO. Let's have a look. So here, endothelin is traveling up to the heart and then into the lungs. Let's zoom into the lungs and to see how the endothelin causes nitric oxide to be secreted. So here we have sacs of alveoli. The deoxygenated blood will come in to be reoxygenated by the alveoli and then return back to the heart. Let's have a closer look at one alveolus. The alveolus will essentially bring in oxygen and bring out carbon dioxide from the lungs, from our body. First, we will look at a normal gas exchange. So if here we have deoxygenated blood flow from the heart, it will come to the alveolus and receive oxygen, which will then bind to red blood cells and then flow back to the heart. So we have fresh oxygenated blood. What happens in advanced cirrhosis when we have endothelin-1 being secreted is that it will bind on the capillary cells and cause nitric oxide to be secreted, which will cause vasodilation, an increase in blood flow. This would mean that a lot of red blood cells flowing through won't be replenished with oxygen because there's too much flow and a buildup of pressure. So it's uneven. Common bile duct ligation will actually cause leukocytes to start migrating to the pulmonary capillaries as well, which will further stimulate the secretion of nitric oxide. Therefore, we could say that hepatic pulmonary syndrome is induced by pulmonary vasodilation induced by nitric oxide. This will cause an insufficient oxygen supply due to different pressures in the capillaries and alveolus. This will also cause difficulty in breathing, and all this is due mainly by the secretion of hormones by the liver, from a liver suffering advanced cirrhosis, such as the hormone endothelin-1. Now let's focus more on liver damage due to liver cirrhosis. Hepatic carcinoma can occur because of uncontrolled multiplication of liver cells for recovery of lost cells. Hepatocellular carcinoma is cancer of the liver. Symptoms include pain, swelling, hepatomegaly, and weight loss. We would see a lot of cells dying in liver cirrhosis, and so there might be uncontrolled multiplication of liver cells because as a homeostatic mechanism. Complications with cirrhosis also include jaundice, yellowing of the skin, which is pretty obvious. This is because we might have intrahepatic obstruction of bile flow from the liver and gallbladder into the small intestines. And so bilirubin, which is supposed to be part of the bile being released in the small intestines, will accumulate and cause an increased bilirubin level in the plasma, and so yellowing of the skin. People suffering from liver cirrhosis might have pronounced yellowing of the skin look. I'm just drawing how the common bile duct here connects with the small intestines to show how bile flow is meant to release bile into the small intestines, but an obstruction in bile flow will result in jaundice. Now the blood leaving the heart, the atrial blood supply, will supply fresh oxygenated blood to many organs. For example, the inferior aorta will supply blood to organs including that of the kidneys. Here, we have 2 kidneys that is supplied with fresh oxygenated blood. The blood leaving the kidneys are the kidney veins, and they will connect with the inferior vena cava, which will then bring the deoxygenated blood back to the heart. It will not connect with the liver, it will just connect with the inferior vena cava straight away. Now, a complication that can occur due to liver damage caused by liver cirrhosis, also a syndrome, is known as hepatorenal syndrome. There is actually no damage to the kidneys, but kidney perfusion is reduced. The blood flow is reduced. Why would kidney perfusion be reduced? Well, an example is because of insufficient blood supply to the kidneys. To see what happens, we would first try to see why we would have insufficient blood supply to the kidneys. It's actually all portal hypertension's fault, or obstruction of blood flow through the liver somewhere. Because remember, we have all this blood flowing from all these organs back to the liver. So if we have an obstruction of the portal hypertension, the blood will flow backwards and cause increase in pressure in different tissues around the abdominal region. This can cause a condition known as ascite, when we have fluid leaking out of the capillaries due to the buildup of pressure in the portal vein. This will cause blood to flow backwards, causing a buildup of pressure elsewhere, and then fluid will leak out into the abdominal cavity. This will cause the stomach to look very big, something like edema of the stomach. And this is very dangerous, as infections can easily occur in people with ascite. So because all the fluid is accumulating in the stomach and the fluid is not returning properly to the heart will think that it does not have enough blood supply, hypovolemia, and so will induce some homeostatic mechanism to cause an increase in fluid volume. There will be arterial vasodilation, not atrial vasodilation, as I wrote here. There will be arterial systemic vasodilation to try to increase blood flow to the organs. The kidneys, because it is not receiving enough blood, enough fluid, it will activate the renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system. This will stimulate the reabsorption of water and sodium from the kidneys, which will therefore increase water and sodium levels in the body to compensate for this lack of blood supply. So hepatorenal syndrome is when we have no actual damage to the kidneys, but due to hypovolemia, low fluid volume in the blood, the kidneys will activate the renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system, which will cause an increase in sodium and water reabsorption. But the thing is, we don't really need any more water and sodium because we already have heaps. It's just the water and sodium are in the abdominal cavity or just aren't flowing through the liver properly. This will then lead to more complications such as edema. The increase in water volume will cause swelling of the hands and ankles, the feet. I hope that made sense. Now, itching is another symptom of liver cirrhosis because of the high levels of uric acid in the skin, which can't be cleared by the liver. I hope you enjoyed this video on liver cirrhosis. It might have been boring and there might have been some mistakes, but it's interesting to know how all these complications do connect with each other. Thank you.